The chance for rain and storms will stick around for our work week. I'll lay out what to expect hour by hour and when we finally dry out.
Some roads impassable on the coast, crumbling from the relentless rain. We're live surveying the damage and how the community is moving forward.
Then, how Wake County schools respond to threats could change. We take you into the discussions today after an evacuation in sweltering heat sent students to the hospital. So here we go. Are you sick of the rain yet? Are you tired of it? You can see on the radar the last of it. The last bit of this storm is with us right now here at 7 o'clock. Thanks for joining us. I'm Dan Haggerty.
And I'm Ashley Rowe. There is a flash flood warning in parts of Wake and Durham counties until 9:30. Tonight, we'll take you to the coast with Aaron Thomas, where Governor Cooper just declared a state of emergency. But first, let's get the forecast from meteorologist Kat Campbell. Hey, Kat.
Hey, Ashley, we're not done with that flood risk yet, especially up near Falls Lake. You're about to see some of the worst of the rain move in right now. Very high rainfall rates leading to the flash flooding risk. Flooded roadways possible in Creedmoor and Butner as that band moves through. And the flash flood warning extends all the way from Franklin County, northern Wake, over to Durham County, as well as parts of Orange County and Granville counties. In that area, we've seen some areas that have seen 2 to 3 inches, even just in the past 12 hours. So that's the concern. After all the rain that we've seen, the rain just doesn't have anywhere to go. Out there right now on the dual Doppler 5000 radar, there is nothing left from Raleigh south, but it's the northern part of our viewing area where we're still going to be tracking this final rain band pushing through tonight. Once we get past sunset, and especially once we get past midnight, things should quiet down for us, but that low pressure system still hanging out for now. Hour by hour rain chances drop to about 30% late tonight, and by midnight we're down to a 20% chance of rain. Over the next couple of days, rain chances don't go away entirely, but they do start to go down. I'll have a closer look at what to expect as we head throughout the next 48 hours coming up.
We'll talk to you then. Thank you, Kat. Meantime, Governor Cooper just declared a state of emergency in 4 coastal counties, including Brunswick County, and this is why some of the images there are just jaw-dropping. We have seen roads washed out, flooding, sinkholes all over the place for the past couple of days. WRAL's Aaron Thomas has been there live, joins us there tonight. And Aaron, so much work to be done in Brunswick County. What a mess there.
Yeah, that's really a great way of putting it. It's certainly a mess and a long way to go. Just speaking from personal experience, we have been trying to drive around Brunswick County for ourselves, and what will happen is we'll be met with the state highway patrol as well as sheriff deputies blocking the roads because many of them are just not safe to pass through right now. You're looking at the barricade blocking Old Ocean Highway, and in the distance you have a partially submerged truck as a result of this road giving way because of those powerful waters that rush through. Now, an aerial view shows how the water stretches for miles on Gilbert Road. This is posted by Brunswick County Sheriff's Office. While waters have receded in some places around the county, roads are still blocked off because they've been given out or could crumble in a short notice. Now, we've had viewers reach out to WRAL, some expressing how a ride to the grocery store, even to work, became a lot more challenging due to the intensity of the storm. Take a listen to how long it took TJ Oliver to get into work today.
Usually it takes me 15 minutes. It took me an hour this morning. Most of the roads were closed between my house and here, so I ended up having to go probably 15-20 miles extra. And I wasn't sure if the roads were closed, so I ended up turning around a whole bunch of times before I found the last one to get through.
Yes, certainly a lot of headache and frustration for not only locals, but as well as visitors. Some have been coming up to us asking, how do I get to Southport? How do I get to Wilmington? Because their usual routes are blocked at this point. So, of course, we know that there are several shelters in place. We'll have a lot of that information on our website, WRAL.com. We'll be here throughout the night at 10, speaking with people who were impacted by this storm and how they're working on moving forward. Aaron Thomas, WRAL News, live in Brunswick County.
There's a whole lot to navigate. Well, if you are just getting to the news tonight, let's roll through the big headlines. Here are 5 things you should know right now. All the bad weather over the last couple of days brought down a huge tree in Raleigh. This is video from Van Dyke Avenue. NC State students living there were watching Monday Night Football when the tree came crashing through. Fortunately, no one was hurt. Now the roommates are salvaging all the furniture they can and are looking for a new place to live. 12 convictions against a former Granville County sheriff tossed out today. In 2022, Brindell Wilkins was convicted in a scheme to falsify firearms training certifications. However, the Court of Appeals ruled these convictions didn't match his actions. Wilkins is still in prison for failure to discharge duties connected to an alleged attempt to have a deputy killed. He's set to get out in December. In Fayetteville, a cargo train slammed into an SUV. Take a look at these photos. This happened around 4:30 near Orange Street and Moore Street in the downtown area. Wow. The people inside the car got out before the train hit. No one was hurt. Officials closed crossings in the area until they could clear the car from the track. The Red Hat Amphitheater staying in downtown Raleigh. The City Council unanimously approved the plan, which will close a block of South Street. It also includes changes around the venue to make it more bike and pedestrian friendly. The new amphitheater expected to open sometime in early 2026. And more presidential election visits in our state this week. The Democrat VP pick, Tim Walz, is speaking in Asheville tonight. Tomorrow, it's the Republican VP pick. Senator J.D. Vance will speak at Union Hall in downtown Raleigh at 3 p.m. This weekend, Donald Trump will be at the coast. He has a rally scheduled in Wilmington on Saturday afternoon.
Remember this scene? This was over Heritage High School in Wake Forest last month. The students there were being evacuated for some time from the building because of a bomb threat, when it turned out that the real threat came from the heat. It was so hot outside, 3 kids ended up going to the hospital. The district says they're working now to make sure that something like this doesn't happen again. WRAL's Destiny Patterson found out how leaders believe they can do that.
I'm holding a couple of emails a Wake County mom sent to the school district after that evacuation from Heritage High School left students outside in high heat. She believes that the way that threat was handled actually put more students in danger. On the third day of school, Erica Paul's daughter and her classmates evacuated Heritage High School for a bomb threat. While law enforcement deemed the threat not credible, another danger lurked in the evacuation area: sweltering heat.
They were stuck in this stadium in the full sun. She was not allowed to leave. She felt like a prisoner.
Her daughter came home with sunburn.
She didn't feel well for days.
At what point do we get evacuated that we then have either a separate team or whoever needs to be involved that is tending to the students' needs?
District officials didn't answer school board member Cheryl Caulfield's questions during the open session today.
I think that's more of a closed session question.
Okay.
In fact, district officials held most discussion for a closed session after very quickly and very broadly going through the steps taken that day. They did say technical errors delayed communication and notified school board members of a second threat the same morning.
That did change the dynamic of what the initial thing was.
After today's meeting, she's expecting a better plan, one that keeps students safe.
So when you send your kid to school, you expect some level of safety.
A school board member asked if the district had a weather protocol for these types of situations, and district officials opted to answer that question in closed session. They say that there's one in the works by the direction of the superintendent. Destiny Patterson, WRAL News, Wake County.
We have some really sad news in North Carolina's wildlife. 5 endangered red wolf pups died after a car hit and killed their father. The male wolf died shortly after the pups were born. Red wolves are monogamous and they mate for life. We're told the mother was likely unable to feed and care for her pups by herself as a first-time single mother. This is actually the second time this year a red wolf was hit and killed by a car. One was hit on Highway 64 in May. Red wolves, by the way, are perhaps the most endangered wild animal in the United States. As of January, only around 23 were in the wild. Losing 7 since then, 2 adults and 5 pups. Well, that's devastating. Lawmakers are looking for solutions, and one of them involves building special crossings just for animals. Here is an example of one from Colorado. Canada has them as well. Here's one from Alberta. We actually have a couple here in North Carolina. They work. You teach one generation to cross, and the mothers teach their young. I spoke to North Carolina State House Representative Sarah Crawford about the effort to build crossings in North Carolina. She wants the state to invest $10 million to make this happen.
There are 6 projects that are identified in 5 locations, primarily in the Pigeon River Gorge area. So that's areas along I-40, I-26, and that will get us a start on those wildlife crossings.
Every year, on average, there are more than 21,000 crashes involving animals, costing the state around $500,000. Now, to be clear, we don't really know if an animal crossing would have saved this red wolf, but they could save future ones. And the cost of losing even a single member of such an endangered species, it's priceless.
And what a heartbreaking story. Ashley, very good points there. More social media criticism coming up tonight for Republican State Superintendent candidate Michelle Morrow. Her tweet talked about background checks and whether LGBTQ includes pedophilia. What should we make of something like that? Let's discuss after the break. Plus, what could yesterday's powerful storm at the coast mean for the rest of hurricane season? We're going to ask Kat Campbell next. The Republican candidate for North Carolina State Superintendent is once again in the news for her social media posts. Michelle Morrow has been criticized before for some of her older posts, posting things about violence against Democratic leaders, for instance. But she often responds by saying that we shouldn't focus on her post from 4 years ago. So instead, let's focus on one from just last night. Morrow writes this: as superintendent, I will work with the General Assembly to enforce mandatory background checks for all public school staff and immediately suspend the license of any staff member arrested for crimes against children. Sounds like a pretty reasonable position, doesn't it? But then she continues, saying her opponent, Mo Green, quote, states he is proudly endorsed by Equity NC, whose mission statement is to promote LGBTQ plus power. She then says, newsflash, the plus includes pedophilia. Oh, okay. Lots to unpack here. First of all, Equity NC doesn't even include the plus in their mission statement. We checked. It says the group builds LGBTQ power, no plus. I'm not sure why, but they don't include the plus. It shouldn't matter anyway, because, and I shouldn't have to say this, but LGBTQ plus does not include pedophilia. Do we really need to say that out loud? The full acronym is this: LGBTQIP2SA. I get it. That's a lot of letters and a number, but none of it stands for pedophilia, obviously, right? And what is Morrow implying here? That her opponent, Mo Green, somehow indirectly supports pedophilia? Do we need to debunk that on the news, really? This is the conundrum that we keep seeing in politics. A candidate presents a legitimate policy, then packages it with something absurd. What I mean is, the background check thing is legit. North Carolina's law on this is a little vague. It reads, each local board of education shall adopt a policy on whether and under what circumstances an applicant for a school personnel position shall be required to be checked for a criminal history. Whether and under what circumstances. Yeah, isn't exactly an ironclad requirement, is it? And there's been discussions about strengthening that language. In 2021, a Republican House rep from Gaston County proposed a change to firm up the language. Should North Carolina pass this bill? It's a good question. It's a reasonable discussion. Lawmakers should have it. And there's more to it. I mean, what about the fact that the rule only calls for background checks when workers apply for the job? I mean, other states like Illinois and Ohio, they do checks on school employees every few years. Just check in on them. Should North Carolina do that too? Fair question, worth thinking about, right? But it's hard to talk about these questions in good faith when they're proposed alongside bigoted misinformation about the LGBTQ plus community. This is why voting is so difficult and so important. When it comes to a comment like Morrow's, can you, as a voter, separate the legitimate points from the ridiculous statements? It's up to you. You can read more about this story on the PolitiFact section of WRAL.com.
Wow. Okay, Dan. Shifting gears to weather now. The storm that brought all the flooding to North Carolina yesterday, it hit right at the peak of hurricane season. And Kat, last month, we talked a lot about how a storm system now could actually benefit us in the future. I want to play a quick clip from that conversation.
Okay.
These storms are inevitable. If we were to get one, you're saying that now would kind of be the time.
I'd rather have one now in the next couple of weeks than 3, 4, 5 weeks from now. And this is why. You can see where we've got the blue, the lighter shades of orange. Earlier in the season, it was very, very warm ocean water. But we had Debbie, we had Ernesto, and that brought some of the cooler water up to the surface. If we can keep that cooler water momentum going, that's good news for us.
So how does yesterday's storm, with that in mind, how does yesterday's storm play into all of this? Are we actually maybe going to see a calmer rest of the hurricane season?
Well, yesterday's storm, I have to wonder with that one if some of the water temperatures that weren't quite as warm helped to keep it from actually becoming a tropical storm in the first place. But since it wasn't a tropical storm, we didn't have that deep upwelling where you pull all that cooler ocean water to the top of the surface. So sea surface temperatures, even just off the outer banks, are still in the mid 80s. So I don't think that we have that protection offshore like we saw before. We had blue on the map last time I showed this map here. Still in the oranges there, not too bad. So it's something we'll watch moving forward. But what we can see this time of year is these systems that pop up a little bit closer to the Gulf of Mexico. So that's going to be the next thing that we're going to be watching here in the coming days. And that's not likely to happen, if it happens at all, until we get into next week. But this is an early heads up that it's looking more likely that we see something develop closer just south of Cuba, and that could potentially make its way toward the Gulf of Mexico by the end of next week. So that's the next place to watch. You can see these Gulf systems either come our way or bring some remnant rain this time of year and when we get into October. We don't need any more rain. It's already been the third wettest year to date on record at RDU Airport. For the month so far, over 3 inches above normal. For the year so far, over 9 inches above normal. Pretty remarkable rainfall totals for a state that had decent drought across the area to start the summer. Outside tonight, look at Fayetteville. Barely any clouds left in the sky. You can see some blue left over before the sun fully sets. Apex, partly cloudy right now. A little bit of sun there in North Hills trying to peek through for the sunset. And in Chapel Hill, the road's still damp and gray skies out there. For the next couple of hours, rain chances will continue to taper off very slowly in our northern counties. At the moment at RDU, it's 74 and not raining there. And the bulk of the rain, I would say, in about 30 minutes should be done for Wake County. Our northern counties still dealing with rain for a couple more hours tonight, but Raleigh points south, we're really drying out. We're not entirely drying out for the week, though. We are still monitoring low pressure, which really weakens in a significant fashion, but it will help to bring a chance for some thunderstorms each day. Those storms mainly afternoon and evening. Tomorrow maybe a little closer to the evening and nighttime hours. And some localized flooding can't be ruled out just because of how much rain we've already had this week. It won't take much more rain to lead to flooding issues. For the weekend, I have good news for you here. A 20% chance of rain Friday and Saturday. It's not zero, but it's lower. High temperatures in the low 80s. Sunday, there are signs could feel more like fall for the start of fall Sunday. The way it looks now, it should feel a bit less humid. We'll be watching that closely for you. It would be nice to actually start the new season feeling like fall. It's kind of rare that we get that around here. The next couple of days feature a 40% chance of rain and storms. A lot of clouds in the morning, but some sun during the afternoon tomorrow. A little less sun on Thursday. Will be partly cloudy as we look ahead into the weekend. Early next week, high temperatures stay in the 70s. We could see some lows back in the 50s by next week. Ashley and Dan.
Okay, Kat, thanks.
One last thing for you tonight. It's a big day in U.S. history, the birth of our Constitution, how North Carolina factored into the process. Plus,
a Republican group is attacking Attorney General Josh Stein for crimes committed under his watch. We'll check the claims in their ad coming up.
A Republican group is attacking Democratic Attorney General Josh Stein, who's running for governor. It claims that sexual assaults are up more than 50% under his watch. Paul Spade checks that claim for PolitiFact.
Have sexual assaults just skyrocketed in North Carolina since Josh Stein became Attorney General? Well, that's what one Republican group says in its TV ad. Take a look.
Now Stein's bragging about his work on rape kits? How dare he? On Stein's watch, rapes in North Carolina are up 53%.
When we reached out to the group that made that ad, a spokesperson cited the total number of rapes reported between 2016, the year before Stein entered office, and 2022, the most recent year of data available from the State Bureau of Investigation. But there are 3 ways that this data is misleading. One, it doesn't account for the fact that law enforcement agencies, they expanded their definition of rape during Stein's term to allow more cases to be counted. 2, it doesn't account for population growth in North Carolina, something that the rape rate takes into consideration. SBI data shows the rate went up under Stein, but not by 53%. The FBI actually shows an even smaller jump in its data when it comes to the rape. You can see their chart here. And 3, the ad's number doesn't represent convictions, people who have actually been found guilty of rape in court. The State Sentencing Commission tracks that data, and you can see convictions for the most serious rape offenses went up 8% under Stein. All of this is why the Truth in Media rates that ad's claim mostly false. Read more about this issue at WRAL.com.
And one last thing we want to tell you about tonight. The Constitutional Convention wrapped up on this day in 1787. Maybe you've seen this painting of the convention in Philadelphia. 3 North Carolina delegates are right in the front: William Blount, Richard Dobbs Speight, and Hugh Williamson.
They all signed the document, but when it came time for the state convention, they said no. North Carolina didn't ratify the Constitution until the Bill of Rights was proposed 2 years later.
I love these look backs in history.
Me too. Thanks for being with us tonight here on WRAL News.
Our next newscast is at 10 on Fox 50 and 11 on WRAL. Good night.
Keep watching WRAL News over the air Channel 34 and Spectrum Channel 1257.